Yeah.
What?
We did it all over the summer.
Yeah, you there?
Well, we did it.
He works there, he does classes there, and then baseball on top of that. It would have been way too much for him. Too much.
Spencer Lindhorst, that is?
What's that?
I still call him Spencer Lindhorst.
Yeah.
The kids used to do something.
Yeah, that's fine.
And we went to the center, so I did all that one house. And they had the t-shirt, and they just fit on somehow. Spencer Lindhorst, like he was one of our kids.
She, I used to see her waiting in the parking lot.
Oh, yeah.
For baseball.
6'6".
Oh, yes, yes.
For the pickup. Actually, I was picking up a daughter from track. My son is the baseball. He drove himself.
You're good. Alright. So you should be able to click. Get on. Yep.
Is this like a hint?
Building
No,
about
Z?
in it all.
Were we expecting Z?
Just being nice. Yes.
Z?
The school board recognition. That makes sense.
Maybe not. Z.
I emailed him. I never kind of followed up.
6:58.
No, Jenny, it's just a nice, just a
It's
kinder,
school board
gentler place.
recognition.
It's school board recognition month. So you
Okay,
get
that's so
mint.
kind.
Mint, and you
I
get
think
another
this is the
pen.
first time I've ever gotten anything.
You get a nice pen.
Yeah, your pen is in your folder.
What? I get another pen. My bag is full of those blue pens that I take every month.
We all look forward to those. Tom went like 6 months without providing those mints.
Yeah,
They're
these
good.
are the good ones.
They are the
They're
good
not in your mouth.
I like those. Not in your hand, someone's
No,
gonna
but the other ones, they get all gummy.
Right. I agree. These are nice.
Well, at least we saw one that was entertaining.
You did? No, I'm saving mine for you. It's my prize
Oh,
in the
the-
end.
so the
If I make it
Saving
through
it.
alive.
Well, they just decided, oh, I'll swim fly and I'll swim breaststroke this time.
We always keep
Set
it
the
together.
school record for both events.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like the fly,
You got your eye.
he swam, he would have won the state title.
Mint.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
He
He
gets
is-
dry. Like when he talks a lot,
Well.
you get your throat goes.
I know, I forgot my water.
Well, you guys banned us from allowing to have 4 bottles.
Well,
of
I
water.
was, that's what I mean. I was gonna bring mine from home, but I forgot.
Yeah,
But he could participate.
okay,
It was interesting.
Well, I don't actually buy it, but I love it.
yeah.
Yeah, no, agreed. But the kids are on their own tonight,
drink enough
so
water.
I'm sure they're organized. Yeah? So we'll just, see if Zaid comes in, but otherwise. Yes. Good evening. Could we have roll call, please, Mr. Calavita?
Ms. Grillo? Mr. Hurt's not here. Ms. Linthorst?
Here.
Ms. Long?
Here.
Mr. Mason?
Here.
Ms. Murray? Ms. O'Reilly?
Here.
Mr. Sawicki?
Here.
Ms. Tracy?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, the Hopewell Valley Regional Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof communicated to the Hopewell Valley News, the Times, and the Trentonian on January 7th, 2020. This meeting notice was also sent to Comcast Cable and Verizon Fios. The board reserves the right to enter into executive session during all meetings of the Board of Education. The meeting is being videotaped for the purposes of board review, future reference, preparation of the minutes, and viewing on Comcast Channel 19, Verizon Fios Channel 32, and the school district website, www.hvrsd.org. Members of the public who intend to participate in public comment, we ask that you sign in prior to speaking. This will assist us with our record keeping. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with I'd like to request a motion to approve the minutes of the December 16th, 2019 regular meeting, please.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Okay, so I do not believe our student representative has made it in for this evening. If he comes in, we'll insert him later in the agenda. And with that, we'll move on to some comments from me. As I mentioned at the top of the meeting, we've revised the process for those wishing to participate in public comment. We've asked folks to sign in at the podium, but now we're asking that perhaps even when you come into the meeting, or right before the meeting starts, or as we're speaking, you might sign in, and that way you won't disrupt your time at the podium or take away from that in any way. This is just to assist us with documentation and record keeping, and to enable speakers to make the most of their time. Following our presentation from the representatives of Hopewell, Dr. Smith will be saying a few words about School Board Recognition Month. I'd like to take a moment to thank the members of the board as well for your dedication and for your efforts and for volunteering your time and sharing your talents to ensure that our staff and our students are supported in their pursuits of achievement. So thank you for your efforts. They're very, very much appreciated. I also wanted to mention that on Friday night, there was a session on LGBTQ 101 over in the community room at the high school. And it was a workshop to provide participants with basic information on terminology and key concepts around gender identity and gender expression and sexual orientation and intersectionality. It was moderated by Cole Callahan, who is the Safe Schools Coordinator for Garden State Equality. And she did a fabulous job. It was a very informative session. And I would say there were probably about 100 people in attendance, which was fantastic for a Friday night. And I think it's kind of pointing to a trend that we're seeing with a lot of our presentations recently. I think that's the third or fourth session that I've attended over there at the high school where we've had upwards of 70, 80, 100 people, which really shows, points to participation here in the district. And I think it's a positive trend and hope to see that continue. There's been some great programming, so make sure you avail yourselves of it when you have the chance. And with that, we'll move to Dr. Smith's report.
All right, great. Thank you, everyone. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to two fantastic, wonderful people, Joanne Markowitz and Nancy Barish, who are the co-creators or developers or founders of Hopewell. I think it's just important for them to come and just talk a little bit about what Hopewell does. They have been really, really integral in the functioning of the district, reaching out to our community, and I can't thank them enough for their care and thought and the professionalism they have exhibited in trying to set up a volunteer program in this district. When we started it, conversations 10 years ago?
10 years ago.
I mean, it was just a dream or an idea of kind of putting together a database and capitalizing on our really, really well-accomplished community. We still have work to do, but Nancy and Joanne have been fantastic in really getting the word out and doing great things ultimately for our kids. So without further ado.
Thank you. So can everyone hear me? So thank you very much to the board for having us here. Thank you to Dr. Smith for inviting us to talk about Hopewell. We love to talk about Hopewell. We're incredibly proud of the program. It has been around for approximately 10 years, and Joanne and I have been working together as a core team since that time, and it's grown. Every single year it's grown. Go to the next slide, please. So what is Hopewell? Hopewell is a district-wide volunteer program set up to capitalize on the many talents and skills of our parents and extended community. Through our web-based system, Hopewell recruits and tracks community volunteers and matches them with opportunities to share expertise within the district. So I think that succinctly explains exactly what we do. What is really wonderful about Hopewell is that it provides an opportunity for learning for everyone. So for the community, it's an opportunity for people to share their expertise, whether it's their professional expertise or if it's a hobby of theirs or something that they want to share and that they're capable of providing information about to our students. The other thing that's really amazing for community members is it's a way of connecting them to the schools. It's a way of getting them into our schools, seeing what they're about, and feeling connected to the teachers and to the students themselves. For the teachers, it's an opportunity to bring their curriculum to life. They're working with the volunteers who are coming in, trying to plan accordingly based on what the students are learning and inspire the students in a different way. And they're learning from what the volunteers are doing in the real world, because a lot of times I think teachers don't necessarily have access to the volunteers who are living the things that they're teaching the students. And then finally, for the students, it's an amazing opportunity to gain real world practical experience, to connect with different people. We have numerous stories of volunteers who have maintained connections over the years with students. One student was able to, I think they did a program in the 8th grade, and they have since graduated, and for one of their years in college, they managed to stay connected to one of our volunteers and get an internship through that person. So they're just amazing opportunities for students to learn and grow. If we could go to the next slide, I will let Joanne take over from here and tell you how Hopewell works.
So I'll give you a little bit about the logistics of the process from the beginning to end. The teacher will, the first form on the left-hand side is the Google Docs that we developed for the teacher, or I'm sorry, that's the volunteer. The volunteers will go into the Google Doc, and you know what, let me speak to the right side first, because it's more the way things flow. The teacher, when they have a request, they'll go out and fill out the teacher request form. And if it's probably hard to see and we don't have handouts, but when they go through the document, they'll tell us what school they're from, what subject they want the request to be done on. They'll tell us what expertise they're looking for. And as they're drilling down, they'll get further into the detail of what they're looking for. So once they do that and they submit the form, they will, it comes through to us in an email. We then look at the form. It's a little bit, I don't know if I'm too close or you weren't getting that. So what we do is we review the request, and we look in our database. We have about 150 volunteers today in our database. We look through our current volunteers that we have, and if we find a match, we will connect them with the teacher. If we don't find a match, we'll put an ad in the focus, and that's how we grow our database. Every time we're looking for a specific expertise that we don't have, we do a call out to our community and say what we're looking for, and we give them an explanation of the request. And hopefully we get sometimes we get 3 or 4 more volunteers, and we have them register, and that's how we grow our database. And that's been very instrumental in keeping the pool of volunteers current and very versatile in terms of what we're looking for. So like I said, once we get the request, we look at it very closely, and we determine the match, and we work with the teacher, and we meet with them and get more specifics, because what we want to make sure is we want to make sure that we fit the right volunteer with that request to the teacher, because we don't want to waste their time, we don't want to waste the volunteer's time. We want the experience to be perfect for both sides. So once that's done, we connect them, and then we step out and we let the teachers do what they need to do, because we don't want to become a bottleneck. We want to just find that match, and then we let them take over it. But we stay in the loop. We take pictures, we kind of observe, because we want to make sure that it's a volunteer that we want to bring back. So we have ways to be able to, we do evaluations afterwards. So that helps us to determine whether or not the volunteer was a good fit or not. And off to the left, you'll see that's the volunteer registration form. And each volunteer that comes into the school prior to coming in, they must fill this out. And it's a means for us to track who's coming in. And again, when they fill it out, they become part of our database, so that we can tap them again in the future if a volunteer fits another request. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Did I miss anything? So
I'll just add that it's hard to see a little bit on this drawing, but if you look at the 2 drawings that are to the right bottom on each of the sides, they kind of match. So when the volunteer puts in information about who they are, the same information is matched in the teacher volunteer request form, and you'll see in the next slide, which maybe we can even go to, our technology expert, Brendan Elliott, has helped develop this amazing form that enables us to determine, based on what the teacher puts in, the best volunteers that match just by virtue of the skills. And then we drill down a little bit more and determine if it's going to work. But if you can look at the very top one, there's a small 2 there. That just means that that first person matched on 2 counts for what the teacher requested. And then as you go down, and this is just a screenshot of some of them, each person below matches 1. And we kind of then get involved in the human element and making sure that the connection's gonna work.
Right. Because just because there's a match from that perspective doesn't always mean it's a good match for the teacher. So what we then reach out to the volunteer, and then we'll ask more questions, and they have bios that are in the database, and we read further on what their background is and make sure that the match is a good match. Okay, and then Tom, you can move to the next. And this is just a recent request that we just filled at Hopewell Elementary, which was a huge success. So I'll back up just a bit to say that our presence have been very, we've been very present in Timberlane, and that's been our success. And then we moved into the high school. We're really trying to get into the elementary schools now. So this was one of the ones that we filled this year, and Ms. Corvaline was looking for a STEM, preferably a woman, to come in to speak to the girls and get them excited about science, and it was a huge success. If you could see, that's the quote, and she was just like amazed at how excited the girls got about science and about what they learned and having the hands-on. So it was really, we actually had 2 women that came in on 2 separate days. This just happens to be a photo of one of the days, and it was awesome. It was great to see the 5th graders get so super excited about science, and especially the girls, because we're trying to shift that a little bit, and it was really exciting to watch that. So I think we got our foot in the door at Hopewell, and we're going to expand a little bit. We're doing a pilot at Tollgate right now, working with Miss Jane Ellen and Lennon, and then we're also working in Bear Tavern, right?
Bear Tavern as well.
So we're pushing out now into the elementary schools, and we're hoping to get a few more requests going. But I think this was a good start.
So next slide, I guess our call to action to you as members of the board would be to make Hopewell part of the conversation. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, connecting with people, please talk about us, please encourage people to get involved, think about ways that we can help you, but think about ways that you can help us to expand our database, to expand in the schools, and just really what we're looking for is your support and your support to make this just the program better and better as we go forward. And then the last slide is just a thank you from our team, and we're really excited because our team is growing, and so these are just a listing of some of the people that have joined our team recently, and we're kind of dividing up the work and making sure that Hopewell is going to be here well beyond just 2 or 3 people, but that it can continue into the future and we can continue to support the district. So with that, does anyone have any questions or thoughts or anything that we can answer for you? So on average it varies, and it really varies with the types of requests. And so if I told you that, I don't actually have a complete number. I mean, how would you say
20?
Yeah, maybe like 20, but sometimes the requests are for 15 teachers. So for instance, one of the things that we've been doing for, I want to say it might have been 10 years, 9 or 10 years, we've been doing a career fair at the middle school. And so depending on what is happening each year and how they decide to work on it, I think last year we had 18 different volunteers that came in, but some of those volunteers did 2 programs.
And like the religion, we just had a religion workshop at Timberlane as well, and that again was multiple volunteers doing multiple sessions. So it does vary, and and like I said, the schools now we're kind of ramping up for the elementary schools, but I think Timberlane's our biggest customer with filling requests, but we're starting to really see it pick up some momentum, which is very exciting, and hence why we need more help, because we're starting to get be careful what you wish for, because we're starting to get a lot more requests, and this just what the 2 of us, we had somebody working with us, and she recently left our team, so it does get a little crazy at times, but now that we're starting to build the team, it'll be a little bit easier for us.
Is there a particular background that seems to be most requested from the teachers, or is it truly just
It's just
all over?
it's all over. I mean, like at the high school, we've been doing a program with AP biology, and we get scientists to come in for that. You know, we get, I mean, some really different things like. What are some of the things that we just recently got?
Well, we were just
nutritionists.
nutritionists. We're doing a stress buster workshop, so
right.
that has to do with, that's also at the middle school, where we're bringing in people, how do they use stress? So in that case, we have people who are artists, we have people who are, focused on meditation, focused on exercise, knitting, just a variety of different areas. I would say if you had to pick one, probably science is the area, and it's beneficial that we have a lot of scientists to pull from, in this area. So
Along those lines, have there been any requests that have been difficult to fill? Like perhaps something that has been found to be a need that hasn't been able to be filled as easily that maybe we could try to reach out to?
I mean, I think that we certainly come across requests that we don't necessarily have the expertise, and then we kind of have to draw on our own personal, like we call friends of friends, and then we, like the Secret Service. Remember, we were looking for Secret Service, and we didn't really have, so we found one. I mean, it took a little, but every now and then we'll get a request that we don't readily have in our database, and we will have to do a little digging, but we don't stop until we find somebody, because we don't ever want to go back to a teacher and say we couldn't do it, and I don't think we've ever had to do that. So,
No.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
No, I admire your resilience then. So,
Yep.
great.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you
All right,
very
thank
much.
I don't know. I don't think we've ever quantified how many hours you've actually volunteered through this project, but I know it's several, 5, 10 a week for the last 10 years, at least. So I mean, volunteered. So it's really, your work is much appreciated by me personally, and I think by the district, because building this program when the goal was that it outlives us all and that it becomes part of our fabric.
We're
Um,
determined to make sure it doesn't
yeah.
die after we
That's
go,
very
because
cool.
to your point, like
Yep.
we just don't want to waste all those hours, and we want it to be sustainable. So
Absolutely.
thank you.
And it
Thank you.
has been something that we've done, I think, out of, just like love and caring. It's really, I mean, it's been really, really fun, and we get along incredibly well, and we have an amazing team, and so it's really been a fabulous experience thus far, and lots more great things to come.
Very good. Thank you.
And as you mentioned, please let us know how we can help you, how we can get the word out and be supportive. We're happy to do that.
Okay, we'll give that some thought.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
School board recognition.
Yes, so I'm just going to take a moment or so just to, speaking of volunteerism, January is a great time to focus on the crucial role that elected board members play in our communities and our schools. This is not your run-of-the-mill volunteer opportunity. I don't know what they told you, John and Jess. It's not one where you're showered with praise all the time for helping out, but the folks around this table know what it takes to be in your role. You are extraordinary people who voluntarily tackle into the enormous job of governing a school district. And in our case, a high-achieving school district that has an actively involved parent community with high expectations. So that role is even greater, I would argue. Your actions and your decisions really affect the future lives of our children. So the students, as we are registering 100, so far I think we have 130 kindergartners registered for next year. They are in your hands to take them through and really make the decisions to lead them and to build the schools for their future. But with that, I mean, it also comes with a great responsibility to our community. And this appreciation should be year-round, but we carve out January to make sure that you know that the administrators, the students, the teachers, the staff, and the community thank you for all that you do. So truly from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate the work of the school board, your support, your guidance as we strive to make the district a better place. So thank you for all those nights, and thank you to your families for lending you out on all these nights.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. And so now we will move on to public comment. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, could I please have a motion to accept the attached resolution acknowledging January as School Board Recognition Month?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes. All right. And now we will move to public comment. Members of the public are invited to address the board on any matter for a maximum of 3 minutes during this portion of the meeting. You are asked to state your name, address, and municipality. In response to your comments, the Board of Education may respond or direct the superintendent to do so. The board may also opt to take the matter up at a future meeting so that the matter is researched by the district administration. Members of the public who intend to participate in public comment, we ask that you sign in prior to speaking. This will assist us with our record keeping. Anyone for public comment? All right. Seeing none, we will continue on. Any matters of old business? Then we will move to the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are marked with the asterisk, just as a reminder. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the items on the consent agenda. Asking for a motion, I'm sorry. Request a motion that we approve the items on the consent agenda.
No, just on that one, all from consent.
Can we motion it first?
So moved.
Okay. And now,
No, I was just gonna request to pull item L4 from consent.
General fund budget adjustments. Okay, so now we open it to discussion, is that correct?
L4? L4 is,
Suspension.
Yeah, suspensions.
Oh, I'm sorry, L4.
okay.
Okay. All right. So do we have
Yep.
discussion on that
We
now,
can-
or, yeah, would you like to have discussion?
No, we have a motion and a second on the table for consent. We vote on consent, and then we'll hit L4 when we get down to it.
Okay, okay. So all in favor of accepting?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay, motion carries.
All right.
So now discussion.
Now finance.
Okay, so when we get down to
Yeah,
that,
yep.
okay, gotcha.
Yep.
All right, so finance and facilities. So we have a number of items on that consent agenda, but then when we get down to number 9, I believe it is, acceptance of donation, and 10, change orders. Mr. Calavita, would you speak to those items for a moment, please?
Ask for a motion to approve those two.
I'd like request a motion to approve items 9 and 10, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
No.
Opposed?
Not yet.
Oh, sorry,
No.
sorry. Discussion? I will get this. It's only been a week.
Yep, that's it. Okay, so for new board members, this time it would be normally the chair that would report out on this. When you're part of a committee, you would take this time to share what you did in your committee, and then the agenda items that weren't approved on consent. As a board, we always accept all donations off of consent so we can acknowledge the donor. So this month, for the second year in a row, Tollgate got a grant from ExxonMobil Educational Alliance Program for $500 to be used towards their math and science program. And I know Principal Lennon is using that towards waiting to use that towards their outdoor classroom as being discussed right now. So that money's been reserved into a grant account to be used when she's got those plans finalized. And change orders are always also another item that is pulled from consent. This is as was mentioned in the green notes, this is a change order that was done on our request. Sometimes a change order is due to field conditions. They open up a wall, they see something behind the wall that they didn't anticipate. You have to do a change order to fix something. This was the cost to furnish and install 2 additional doors, newer doors, in the Central High School Media Center, and also to revise monitor in the new high school. when that's finished, we'll get over there to take a tour. But there's these rooms, these media rooms that have monitors on the walls. And when they started to build the rooms, the monitors were going to be in one spot. And then as the teacher saw the way the room was going to be laid out, felt, and I think Tony too, felt that the monitors needed to be moved. And to move those walls, they need to be reinforced because the walls that they were going to be placed on couldn't handle the 60-inch TV that was going to be placed on that wall. So that's what these two change orders are for. And that's
And the change orders, though, are covered under the allowance of
Correct.
the project.
correct. There's contingency built into any project for unforeseen things. And this falls within the allowance that was registered with this project. So at this point, I would ask for if there's any other questions on these items. Seeing none, you can ask for your vote.
All right. So all in favor of accepting numbers 9 and 10 on the agenda?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to personnel. So, yes. I'd also request a motion to approve the items under the personnel report.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Or Tony first?
Yep.
Tony, discussion, please.
So there's a few things I'd like to make note of on the personnel agenda. First, recognize Terry Solomon, who's on the agenda this evening, who will be retiring at the end of the year. Terry's an English teacher at Central High School and has been with the district since 1994. Has done an outstanding job teaching our students. Terry, along with our other retirees, will be honored by the board officially at our May meeting. I also would like to announce publicly, last Friday, we announced that the building levels are Governor Educators of the Year honorees. And the board will also be recognizing these folks in the month of March. From Central High School, Karen Lucci, who's a science teacher. From Timberlane Middle School, Stephanie Capasso, who's a special education teacher. Bear Tavern, Christina Overman, who's our STEM facilitator. From Hopewell Elementary, Sharon Cohen, who's a preschool teacher. From Stony Brook Elementary, Bashir Khan, who's a kindergarten teacher. And from Tollgate Grammar, Audrey Fisker, who's a social worker. So all those folks were made aware along with our staff. And then a couple years ago, we started what's called Support Professionals of the Year. So it's not something that's mandated by the state. It's something we chose to do as a district. So folks like our custodians, paraprofessionals, bus drivers, secretaries, and campus safety officers. And we announced today those 3 recipients, which are Julie Beck Lowe, who's a paraprofessional at Central High School, Ken Warner, who's our campus safety officer at Timberlane, and then Talea Owens, who's our transportation dispatcher. And we all know that that's not sometimes the most pleasant job in the world. So we're very excited about those 3 individuals, and we'll be representing or recognizing them as well at our March meeting.
And again, just for new members of the board, all personnel action items are a roll call vote by state ordinance. There will be other roll call votes that we may do during the course of the meeting, but personnel and second readings on policy are mandatory, that you must do a roll call vote.
I also just wanted to add to what Tony said with regard to Mrs. Solomon's retirement and acknowledge her work here in the district since 1994. She is a highly respected member of the high school English department, and in the words of one of her students, Mrs. Solomon's mastery of language and composition are unparalleled. She's incredibly knowledgeable and intelligent and works well with her students to provide them with the same skills. Ms. Solomon is a dedicated professional who is also a caring and supportive member of the CHS community, ready to lend a hand when a student or a coworker needs assistance. So on behalf of the Board of Education, I congratulate Ms. Solomon on this milestone and thank her for her service and wish her the best in her future endeavors. So now we can have a roll call vote, please.
Okay. Ms. Long,
Yes.
Mr. Mason,
Yes.
Ms. Murray,
Yes.
Ms. O'Reilly,
Yes.
Mr. Sawicki,
Yes.
Ms. Tracy,
Yes.
Ms. Grillo. Here, Ms. Linthorst.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. All right. So, Education Program Committee. Again, we have items on the consent agenda. So
Yep.
I'd like to request a motion to put forth those items on the agenda.
Consent's done.
Oh, sorry, that was already done.
Roll call.
Okay, yes, gotcha. So the new course approvals. So we'll need a roll call vote on that one. Did we want any discussion on that first? I'm sorry, a motion to accept item number 7 on the agenda, please.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay. Ms. Treese, Dr. Treese, would you mind giving us a little more background on those new course approvals, please? Any questions on that?
Just from that standpoint, how many sections of Mandarin do we currently have, and what do we anticipate when these go through?
So we'll have a roll call vote, please.
Okay. As I should have mentioned before, but new course approvals are also a roll call vote. Mr. Mason.
Yes.
Ms. Murray.
Yes.
Ms. O'Reilly.
Yes.
Mr. Sawicki.
Yes.
Ms. Tracy.
Yes.
Ms. Grillo. Ms. Long.
Yes.
And Ms. Linthorst.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, community relations, I guess we didn't have anything on the agenda there today, so we can move on. And then district calendars. Have Dr. Smith speak to that for a moment, please.
Alrighty, so,
Oh.
Motion first, Tom.
Could I please request a motion to approve the district calendars?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
No.
No?
Tom's gonna talk.
Discussion?
gotcha. So, so up for discussion are 2 calendar changes, and one just to highlight for folks. With, I believe everyone should be aware. If not, it's on the website. But we put together a calendar committee a couple of years ago that was representative of parents, students, and staff members. We met several times to review calendars, and we decided to develop calendars that would take us up for the next 5 years. So we have 5 years of calendars that are available from our district website. One of the proudest things I think were of those calendar revisions includes the addition of Diwali and Lunar or / Chinese New Year in those calendars. So we will be recognizing those holidays moving forward when they fall during the school week. And that was, if you're interested, we had a student, kind of an independent project from our AP class, talk about the need to recognize those holidays. But that's not what we're talking about today. That's just some background. One things we didn't do was, and we approved it last year, but inadvertently the calendar committee, for I guess history, the last 2 days in Hopewell have been early dismissal days. So I'm recommending and asking the board approve that the second early dismissal day be added for this school year and also for next school year. Now, as part of the development of those 5 school calendars, the board is asked to review the calendars, although they've been improved in their entirety, but bringing them back in front of the board just to remind everybody of any potential changes going forward. Next year, September, is a significant change or departure from previous calendars, where students will be returning because of the way Labor Day falls, and the want from the community, which we heard in our survey, and we had a survey, one of the most participated in surveys, I can also add, was our calendar survey, was a request to bring the end of our school year back. We have I guess ended as late as June 24th in some years, but the goal was to bring it in the teens if possible. Well, one of those things in looking at our calendar for next year in particular, Labor Day falls on September 7th. Had we continued with past practice, we would have had teachers come back on Tuesday the 8th for 2 professional development days. So students wouldn't have started until September 10th, which is pretty late, and which that would have pushed us into that following week at the end of the school year, much into the 20s. So the calendar committee made the suggestion, and it was already approved once by the board, but I just want to make sure as people look at things and making plans, that students are coming back on September 3rd of next year. September 3rd of next year. And staff are coming back September 1st. So school starts September 3rd of next year. Just want to make sure folks know. One other thing you should just be aware of as part of the calendar changes was the revision of President's Weekend. And this is going to be the first year that we have had that, where it's not a 4-day weekend. We decreased it to a 3-day weekend, again, in an effort to get to the end of the school year to fall within the teens. Again, these were approved by the calendar committee, approved by the board already, but just trying to do our due diligence and making sure everybody is aware of these changes, that September 3rd will be the start of school next year. Any questions?
What day?
September 3rd.
Okay.
September.
Before Labor Day?
That is before Labor Day.
That should be a big.
Oh,
Yes,
wow.
that's
They're
right.
still gonna miss it.
But I will say that we are closing schools on Labor Day. Monday is off.
Okay, good.
Surprise.
Nice. I mean, it is good because graduation is 17th, 18th,
Yes.
not 22nd.
That was the big driver, because that would take us into the 20s, so we really wanted to work that in. So I really, if you,
Other districts do that, right?
absolutely, but
That
it hasn't
goes-
been,
They go back
Yep.
before, even if it's a couple days, and then they have
Correct.
Labor Day. And
yep, yeah, absolutely. It's commonplace in a lot of other places, and actually, I won't go. Some start before September, but we won't go.
August.
Yeah, we're not proposing.
I'm not proposing that. That was never spoken about.
Okay.
So I'm asking for I can't make the motion, but just asking for the board to approve the second early dismissal day for this school year and the second school early dismissal day for next school year, but also just recognizing that the calendar for next year.
So all in favor?
We making a motion?
It's already done.
The motion was made, so now we're. Aye.
Aye.
All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, abstention? No? Okay, motion passes. All right, so now we're going to move back to item L4, and I'm going to request that a motion be made to approve the attached report on school suspensions for December.
Motion.
And some discussion now, please.
Okay. The reason I asked it just to be pulled was, it's unusual for us to have an elementary school student suspended, and it's particularly unusual. I don't ever recall it in my time on the board that somebody was suspended out of school for a long duration. So the reason I asked the question is just, over the last couple years at the high school and at Timberlane, we've moved more towards trying to drive students towards in-school suspension with the intention that tends to be more productive use of the student's time. We can better monitor what they're doing, things like that. I'm sure the decision for an out-of-school suspension wasn't taken lightly, but and it's a very serious infraction. But I guess my question is, one, given the nature of our administration, at the middle school and high school, we have vice principals who can monitor in-school suspensions. Is that not something we can do at the elementary schools? And two, given that, how does the suspension work for an elementary school student? Are they still, responsible for maintaining, keeping up? At the age that we're talking about, I could see this being a very difficult thing to deal with.
Correct, and I can share, because this is a very special, unique situation, that the student is not out of school for that long. and was not out long. That has been changed or kind of worked through with the families. And I don't feel comfortable sharing details. I could share those offline, but there are special circumstances regarding this situation, and I can share those.
Okay. But from that standpoint, I guess, from that question, do we have the option of an in-school suspension for elementary?
Yes, and this student is being educated at this time.
Okay.
In not necessarily in their home school, but someplace.
Is this a student that, I mean, that's a long suspension, like,
Yeah.
that is being carefully looked at for placement reasons too? Because it's,
Yes.
okay, no, or home instruction? It just,
Not home instruction. The student's being educated here, actually, in this building, with a one-to-one teacher. So that was. I could share that in executive session regarding some of the work with the parents because it is a very unique situation.
Oh, we need to vote. I'd like to, all those in favor?
aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Okay, so we're moving on to the review of the board calendars for January and February. I'd like to request a motion to accept the calendars for January and February, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so let's discuss. Who's up first?
So is there any, I don't think there's anything more for January, right?
Just go right.
Well,
So just bringing your attention to the Bob and Tom show will be January 22nd, informal budget reviews. There'll be a 9 a.m. and a 6 p.m. That'll take place in this building.
You should call it that, and market it too.
The Bob and Tom show? I don't
That'll go over well.
think so.
isn't that a real show?
I think that is a real show.
Adam, I know you and I just talked briefly
Yeah.
beforehand. Did we want to go for the 24th, keep, or the 3rd?
So that's a question for you, Debbie and Bill, and Debbie. From that standpoint, Bob had requested before the meeting in February on the 10th an additional finance and facilities meeting. I had initially proposed to him the 3rd, just from the standpoint of knowing we were going to be here for work session, but from the standpoint of moving things forward, I think the question came up, would we consider moving that up a little bit earlier? So I'll put that out there, potentially maybe the 27th. Would that be an option?
You mean instead of the 3rd or?
Instead of the 3rd.
Instead of the 3rd.
Would you be available either
Yeah.
that afternoon or evening? Or like late afternoon?
What date?
The 27th.
I'm just saying, since it's not a board meeting, we could probably do 4 o'clock on the 27th. Would that?
With
Yeah. I
Yeah, I
can
can
do 4
make that
o'clock.
work.
27th, I can do 4 o'clock.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
Great. So we'll make that the 27th. And the purpose of that night we're just going to be discussing the long-range facilities plan.
So then you're moving it to the 27th.
27th to 4.
And nothing on the 3rd?
Nothing on the 3rd.
Let's get policy on the
Yep.
back on the track.
7 o'clock, okay, for personnel? You're okay with that? You're okay with 7, right?
So you are the chair. So we were doing Friday mornings virtually, so if you want to just talk to the.
Right, yes, so policy committee members, would you like to, well, I guess the 21st, right, would be the first, we usually do it about 2 weeks. Is it 2 weeks out? No, it's not 2 weeks out.
Well, we don't really have anything, we have stuff pending, but,
Right,
so we'd start the cycle, but.
so maybe the 28th.
So Bill and John and Sarah, we typically have done a virtual meeting. So you do a call-in, we send you everything, and then we really just go over changes in the discussion. So you don't have to come in. You can really participate from everywhere. We usually do a Google Doc, and it's a live conversation. If you want to do that, we've done it in the past Fridays at 8 o'clock. And I don't know if that works for you or not, or if you want a live meeting. That's just the way it seemed to work out for the other committee members, was the virtual setup.
Either way works for me.
Okay.
I can come if you prefer a live meeting. I can do 8 o'clock in the morning works for me.
Maybe
Either
for
way.
the first one, it would be nice if we could do a live.
Whatever is easier for everyone else. Works for me.
I won't be able to. 8 o'clock's not gonna work. But you could call in if, or no, that doesn't
Yeah.
work either, virtually.
No, no, I can do virtual, it's just, I mean, 8 o'clock, I'll call in, I'll probably have to get off, and then I'll call back in again.
Is 8:30
'Cause I'll
better?
be on the subway or
Yeah.
something.
Is 8:30 any better or no?
Yeah.
Could we do that? Yeah.
Bill, does that work for you?
8:30 on the 28th is what we're looking at, correct? Yeah. Either virtually or in person, whichever is better.
28th, Tuesday, the 20th?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at, is that
The-
February? No, February.
So we're looking at the 31st?
Yeah.
Friday the 31st.
An hour.
About an hour, yeah. And again, it's a call-in for folks if you want, or you can come. We literally, we sit and project the things up on screen, the policies. So we're here anyway, just live kind of working through them. And it is, you'll get the policies beforehand with the suggestions. So just a real quick aside. So as we go through policies, some are mandated by the state to be revised. We work with a policy company. But then prior to bringing them to the board, we also meet with either a committee or an administrative team, depending on how significant the changes are. And we make those recommendations to the committee. You can wordsmith them, do anything you feel, and then we bring them to the full board. So what you will get prior to the meeting is a Google Doc, access to the Google Docs and a PDF, depending on what's, I usually do both, right? But you will see the live document, the live doc, and we kind of edit it while we're there. And also, you'll have access to the doc so you can make comments. I'm not, can we clarify this? Can we use and versus or? Things like that. So you'll get that well in advance of the meeting.
So if it'll be in this room right here?
Typically, yeah, it's here. We do it here because we just project right there, Bob and I. Okay.
Oh, I do.
Great. Bob usually is in pajamas, just so you're aware.
But yeah, right.
No, you
Oh.
With footy.
With a tie.
With footy.
Just the bottom.
Okay.
Do you have community relations?
Oh, community relations, yeah. Yep.
We had been
Tuesday night
doing
on the
Tuesday,
27th.
Wednesday afternoons, but we could, what's better? Is mornings better? John, too.
Mornings or later work better for me, but
Later, like
Like
5, 6?
5, 6 would
Yeah,
work better
that-
for
that
me.
would-
But
Or does
some
mornings,
works.
5, 6 is
Yeah.
better? Okay. What day of the week? You don't care. We should do it before the 10th. So, well, I need to know if we're doing EdCom Tuesday the 4th, I guess. Is that when we're doing it? So maybe Wednesday the
Oh,
5th?
you want to do it right after the meeting on the 27th?
Or what time is that?
Yeah.
Because we could do it right after EdCom. Because Debbie and I'll be here. Are we doing EdCom at like 3 o'clock on the 4th?
I think that's what, if that
That's what we had
works.
talked about. So should we say 5
And
o'clock
would-
then for community relations?
Would that be over before the HVEA executive meeting? Isn't that day we were invited
Oh, is that the 4th?
Fourth,
That's
yeah.
right,
at
yes.
4:15?
Oh my gosh.
How about the 27th after finance?
4:15, she's right. I forgot.
What's the
We could-
27th of January?
Monday.
It's a Monday.
Yeah, I can do that.
5 o'clock?
That work?
Or
Yeah.
6
5:30, just make it 5:30, just in case.
Can we put that on the calendar since we were invited, the HB meeting?
5:30?
Is that okay?
We were invited.
Does that work for you, John?
That's perfect work.
All right, we kind of make those up as we go. That's not a set time usually, because it seems like it's changed.
Yes.
We do this every month. Okay.
Either first thing in the morning or after 5.
We can try to find a steady date. So what, then EdCom, what are we doing if you guys are doing the
I can
Yeah,
get
that's
there at
right.
2:45 is the earliest.
2:45?
That's on the 4th?
On the 4th? But if you guys have something at 4,
4:15, I
Yeah.
believe it is.
okay, so
Yeah.
we can get
And
through
that's
it in
here,
an hour?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
here.
here.
Yep.
And it's here,
Yep.
upstairs?
But I mean, the HVEA thing is in here too.
Okay.
So are we saying 3 or 2:45?
3?
3?
Or is that a 3?
You didn't get it.
It's gonna be tight.
Across the hall in that little room there. Do it a little earlier.
Just waiting for the personnel set, we have everything set, right? All right. So moving right along, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Any items of new business? Seeing none, we will move on to our second public comment session. Members of the public are invited to address the board on any matter for a maximum of 3 minutes during this portion of the meeting. You are asked to state your name, address, and municipality. In response to your comments, the Board of Education may respond or direct the superintendent to do so. The board may also opt to take the matter up at a future meeting so that the matter is researched by the district administration. Members of the public who intend to participate in public comment, we ask that you sign in prior to speaking. This will assist us with our record keeping. Anyone who would like to speak? Please, come on up to the podium.
Well, thank you.
Good evening.
Yes, okay. My name is Mike Murr. I live at 25 East Welling in Pennington. And I am the father of 3 children who have gone the whole way through the Tollgate and Timberlane and Central High School. And I said I live in the borough of Pennington, right? And so I'm glad that the school district and Pennington Borough are accomplishing the preservation of house habitat and working to make it an arboretum. And at the Pennington Borough Zoning Board, Planning Board meeting, I learned that the school district intends to build a fence along the new border between the Tollgate field and the arboretum. I hope what I heard was wrong, but anyway, I want to talk about that. I would urge you to consider another way to indicate the dividing line. A line of trees or bushes or shrubs would be appropriate. One or more signs indicating where the arboretum stops would be appropriate. And if a fence is somehow preferable, which I really can't understand why, but I would ask that the north-south length of the fence be as short as possible. My property is where it's at the south part of the new dividing line. And so I would like for the fence to not go all the way to my property line, and preferably to stay some distance away from it. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Murr.
I can respond, but I don't know if you have anybody else who wants to speak.
Did anyone else want to speak to that?
No, I mean.
Oh, I'm sorry. Any other public comment?
So I can just speak to it briefly. I don't think, and Mr. Colby, correct me if I'm wrong, and I know Elise, you were involved in some of the conversations, that a type of fence or the fence in general has been determined, but I know it was brought up as a security concern because of the thinking was not many people go through that now. And if you look at, I guess, the plan, there is a walking path that would come up right adjacent to where the dividing line is. I know there was also conversations about deer exclusion fencing, so that would be the taller kind of open fencing with that. But to date, no, we have not made any determination on the type or the length or anything of the fencing, so we can obviously take your comments to note. But I know that there was an interest, and this came from conversations with our police also, as that space becomes more used, and particularly used during the day. There was a worry about folks wandering into school, getting, some of that is also getting lost and wandering into school property. But that conversation is going on. We haven't had it, but we will bring that up when we have the discussion.
Again, I don't think it was meant to enclose the entire
No.
area. It was just to mark the border where where that baseball field is and the arboretum, just to kind of give a natural, or not a natural, but a barrier there to prohibit folks from just wandering onto the school site, not necessarily enclosing the whole thing. If that's what your question was, well, were we going to enclose the whole property, which we're not. That wasn't part of the plan.
Is there someone that other than coming to the board every month, is there some individual that
I mean,
Yeah, so you could talk to me or Bob. I'm Tom Smith, Superintendent of Schools, so if you could just stop by. I typically have open office hours from 8 to 9 every morning, but if you call beforehand or shoot me an email, we could set up a time. Like I said, since the property was deeded to Pennington,
actually hasn't been done yet.
which hasn't even been done yet, we haven't had any discussion about the fence, so we can meet beforehand or meet afterwards. I don't know if you've seen the plans in general. Right, so there's the one concern is where the path comes up and the playground is really within a few feet of that. So that was the concern raised by, I think, all the folks that were involved. But again, so you can reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to sit and review the plans, and as we go further in the process, talk about it.
Thank you.
And on that note, we'll report back to the board when the sale finally closes. It's still stuck up in channels, I guess you would say. Pennington Borough is working with the county and their own planning board on getting, what's the term I'm looking for, a affirmation of a subdivision. They have to create a new subdivision for that plot of land to be able to deed it over, and that's where they are right now.
Thank you. And I'd like to request a motion to enter into executive session, please.
So moved. Second.
Okay, then we're discussing
And we're discussing matters of harassment, intimidation, and bullying, and a student matter as well.
and action will not be taken.
Action will not be taken.